Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to the Crisis Corner. And y'all already know it is your girl, Latanya Yvette, your trauma recovery coach. And so we're going to jump right in today. And I am excited about today because today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, and that is rejection. And so let's jump right into it. So once again, you know that this is the Crisis Corner, and a crisis, a time of difficulty, trouble, or danger, right? Calamity, emergencies, whatever, predicaments, you find yourself in a jam, up against the wall. And again, what is crisis to one person may not be crisis to another person. And so it's a time when important decisions must be made, right? Concerning a decision that has to be made concerning maybe your health, your situation, or whatever, right? It's also a turning point. It's a turning point of a disease which can lead to life or death, right? When somebody's in a crisis, a sickle cell crisis, a cancer crisis, or whatever, it is a turning point once it becomes a crisis. And that is at the point where it determines if it's going to take your life or are you going to recover? And so here at the Crisis Corner, it is all about recovering. And so once again, we're the sum total of the decisions that we make and the decisions concerning us that were made probably by our parents, by our caretakers, or whatever, right? So when we get into this and we look at crisis, when it comes to certain things, we know that Corona was a crisis, it was a pandemic. But when we look at crisis, when it comes to us as humans, we see a lot of things: rejection, aggression, our emotional health, our mental health, our soul health. All of those things are not so great, right? And we trying to figure out, why am I like this? And so I'm gonna help y'all out. And so a lot of these things are accumulation, right? You might think that I'm 54 and I'm like, oh, this is just the way I am. And I said that for many years, that this is just the way I am. That was my thing. And I thought that that was the way I was wired, not understanding that it was accumulation of things. It wasn't just one thing. It started at birth and it ended up following me, but it was one thing piled on top of another thing. And so you can think that, oh my God, I'm so irritated, I'm just a mean person, or I'm, whatever it is, that how you feel about yourself. You have to be able to diagnose, where did it start at, right? Well, where is the pain point? Where was the point of impact? And those are the things that you need to learn how to identify, so that you don't misdiagnose, and you don't be working on something that is not the problem. Because a lot of times what we see now is not the problem. If you was to trace it back, when did it start and all of that, you would be able to understand. And so when trauma gets trapped in the body, it brings on sickness, it brings on disease, it brings on all of these things that you're like, oh, I think that is this, or I just gained all of this weight, or whatever, not realizing that because I'm in crisis, I'm an emotional eater. Because I'm in crisis now, the body is attacking itself because trauma got caught in the body, and the body is made to protect itself. The brain is wired to protect you. So once you go through a traumatic event, that's how PTSD comes. The part of the brain that is there to protect you, it shuts down, and then your parasympathetic systems. I'll have to give y'all a whole course on biology to understand all of that. But I want to deal with today is the crisis of rejection, the pandemic of rejection. How rejection keeps us in crisis longer than we should. Now, you might think that when somebody says crisis, oh my God, it's like it's a big thing. It's a big thing to them, right? My crisis could be like, I don't have no finances to feed my children. My crisis could be, I'm having stomach issues, I have a cold, or whatever. Your crisis could be bigger than that. Crisis could be that you was raped, you was molested, whatever it is, right? My mama died, my daddy died, my kids is acting up, my son in jail. Whatever that crisis is to you, this is what I want you to apply it to yourself, and I want you to make it personal, right? Okay, so when we look at the crisis of rejection. Rejection is an identity thief. It comes to take your identity, right? Many were rejected upon conception, meaning that when your mother got pregnant with you, she didn't want you or whatever, and even in vitro, right? You was rejected. You weren't by your parents. Your father didn't want you. Your mother didn't want you. There was no abortion clinics around when you was born or whatever. But they didn't get rid of you. But they still rejected you, and so you grew up rejected. You grew up feeling rejected. You grew up because of what you felt in vitro. This is how deep rejection runs. So we know that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and to destroy, right? But God said, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I already knew you, right? But the enemy knew what was on your life. And so a lot of times when you're attacked, even in vitro, and so that you never make it to this point right here where you are, right? And so rejection is something that we see. It's not a culture thing. It's not gender specific. We have men that suffer with rejection, women. We have different cultures, Asian, whatever. No matter what ethnicity you are, you have gone through some form. Not everybody, but a lot of people have gone through rejection, and it is the identity thief. It comes to make you think that you're not who you are. You're always in character. You're always in performance because you want to be loved. You want to be seen. You want to be heard, and all of these things. And these are the things that make you stay in rejection longer because it's hard to identify. And so let's get into it. So if you was conceived and it was an unwanted pregnancy, you probably are battling with rejection, right? How you were conceived, rape, or molestation that kept your mother from connecting with you in the womb. How you are carried matters. How you were carried. Were you carried in love? Were you carried in fear? Were you carried in, it just was a terrible pregnancy that there was had to be a C-section, or it was a lot of difficulty in the pregnancy. All of those things determine if you're feeling rejection from the womb. Now we're talking about from the womb. You think that all babies come out and every mother loves the baby. No, we have certain situations where the pregnancy was an unwanted pregnancy, unfortunately, like in molestation or rape, and it was a decision made that you were going to keep the baby or whatever happened, and now this baby comes into the world and this baby is rejected. Babies can hear from 18 weeks in vitro. They heard you say, I wish you was a boy, but you're a girl. They heard you say, I don't even want this baby. They heard the arguments. They heard all of that because babies can hear in vitro. And then we look at those things and we understand, oh wow, but if you're open to having these conversations to heal, because becoming whole, you have to hear some harsh truth. For example, my mother told me as we were going through our healing process that no, no, I didn't want you. Like, you're the product of a one night stand and I did not want you. And there was no abortion clinics for me to get rid of you, right? It gave me language. Oh, no matter if it felt hurtful or whatever, I needed answers. And so she was like, so I couldn't get rid of you and I carried you in shame because having a baby out of wedlock back in those days were shunned upon. It wasn't the normal like it is now. It was a big deal. And so the fact that she carried me in shame, I was born into rejection, right? And so it took me years and years and years to not feel rejected, to conquer rejection, to be delivered from rejection. And it's not an easy one to be delivered from, right? Again, it comes for your identity. So who you thought that you were when you were in rejection is usually the opposite of who you really are. You don't have to, the loudest one in the room is usually the most rejected one in the room. Your friend that has the biggest mouth and always wants to be the center of attention is probably the one that battles with rejection the most, right? Rejection causes a developmental delay, and not just so you miss your milestones. And let's get into that. So we know a baby has to have their milestones, right? When you take your newborn baby to the doctor, they want to know if that baby is walking on time, if that baby is making sounds with their mouth, if that baby is doing the things that are age appropriate. Usually when somebody is going through rejection, they have a developmental delay. Why? Because arrested development is a thing, right? Whatever the place that you had your trauma, usually you remained at that place of impact. So for me, I was 13 years old for a long time. Even though I had the kids, I was a mother, I was a wife, I still was in rejection, which made me miss certain milestones, the things that I should have been able to do and should have had the capacity to do it. I was unable to do it, right? It makes you have cycles of incompleteness. It makes you be able to be in some place where you should never be, right? Your coping mechanisms, how you cope when you're rejected, right? However you feel, you aggressive, right? You can't keep a job. All of these things because your attitude, your opinions, you're always fighting to be right. All of these are some signs of rejection, and we have to be able to take introspection, look at ourselves and understand, look inside of you and see what's going on. Don't always look out the window, but sometimes you need to look in the mirror and see who it is that's the problem. So the scripture says, let every man examine himself. And in examining yourself, it takes a strong person to be like, it ain't everybody else, it's me. When you get to that point where you can be like, it's not everybody else, it's you, you'll be able to take accountability for your part in it. And so don't say that I'm up here saying that you're not, this is what I'm saying to you. You're not responsible for what happened to you, but you are responsible for your healing. You're all responsible to take accountability to whatever it takes for you to be whole for yourself, for your husband, for your children, for life, for those around you who interact with you. It takes you to take accountability. You cannot stay immature, missing milestones, still doing the same thing, grown-ups having temper tantrums, and all of those things. You cannot be in your 50s still blaming your parents because of your refusal to take responsibility to heal. So let's say that 20% of how you are is the what happened to you, whatever that crisis is that happened to you, child abuse, you was put up for adoption, you was born in foster care, you the cousin's baby that was raised and you don't know you, whatever it was, whatever your crisis is, right? You're the sum total of those decisions and the decisions made concerning you, right? 13 years old pregnant, sometimes 13 years old pregnant and going through molestation. The decisions was made for my mother to take me to have an abortion at 13 years old. Very traumatic, right? But also along with the anger that went along with all of that, going through that, right? All of those things. So I cannot still be mad because it happened, right? I had to deal with the hurt, deal with the issues of that, and move forward. It was a decision made that you're not going to have this baby at 13. I'm going to take you to have this abortion and we ain't going to speak about it again, right? So they shut it down. But because trauma again has a legacy, even if the adults be like, we're not going to discuss it, that legacy is going to remain until it is dealt with. So can we deal with the legacy of trauma? So listen, I'm going to give you some points on how to deal with it, right? First, we got to identify the pain point. What exactly happened? Now, the brain, because it does this thing to protect you. It locks things in your memory. It locks up, like it sort of locks up certain things, certain traumatic events you may not remember that happened to you as a child. It was that traumatic to you, and you just suffered memory loss, right? And you misdiagnose because you don't really remember. I think something happened, but I can't quite figure it out, right? I think that something happened. I think that I was touched inappropriate. I think that these is for the people that don't know, but for those of us that know that we went through things, is different, right? But that, to identify your pain point, right? When I was working as a medic, one of the things we would respond to asthma attacks, difficulty breathing, asthma attack. We get there and the person is saying that they have chest pain, right? They think that is chest pain, but they're having an asthma attack. It's a breathing problem. It's not a heart problem, right? So we have to know what to diagnose so we know what to treat. If I treat the heart, the patient is going to go out on me because I need to treat the breathing. And so I'm giving you that example to understand that if you treat the wrong thing, then you can either die there, die in it, or it's not going to be effective as it should. So they didn't understand that I'm having shortness of breath. And because I'm having shortness of breath, I need my asthma pump, but I got chest pain too. And now I think my heart. It wasn't never the heart. It always was the breathing. And once we would correct the breathing, the chest pain will go away. So I say that whatever is stacked on top of, you've been through molestation, and then you ran away from home, and then you became a teenage mom, and then you dropped out of high school, and then you was in a domestic violence relationship, and then you went to jail for selling drugs, and then you was abused in jail, or you was abused in your household, or whatever. You have to identify, where did it start at? So knowing the pain point, taking a look inside, what happened. Sometimes it comes, it is revealed in prayer. Sometimes it's revealed, if you just sit, if you just ask questions. I think sometimes the older adults that try to keep the secret, they so wore out by keeping the secret that they will tell you, listen, this is what happened. It's always somebody that knows the family secret, and they'll reveal it out of spite or whatever. But however you get it, just get it, right? Because we can't afford to sit in something too long that was misdiagnosed. We have too many people, too much aggression, too many people in failed marriages, failed friendships, failed all of these things because of misdiagnosis, not understanding. Oh my God, if I would just go have the courage to go back to the scene of the crime. Sometimes to save face, right? To save face, to make sure that it's not on them. It's always you. Even as a daughter, my mother always made me seem that there was something was wrong with me. Like, what's wrong with you? You always ask me what's wrong with me. Like, and I'm looking at her in anger for many years that you're asking me what's wrong with me. But you know what's wrong with me. We just going to skip over the molestation. We're going to skip over the abortion. We're going to skip over that. No, we're going to deal with it. And when I had the courage to go back to the scene of the crime, right? To go back to the place of impact, to go back to the childhood, to get little Tanya, because little Tanya is a big part of big Tanya and how I am and who I'm called to be. I had to go back. And when you have the courage to go back, that is when you are able to heal and become whole, because you'll be able to gather up all your pieces and put them back together. All the fragments, all of the situations, everything that you need to be able to heal, to be whole, because that is the end result, for you to be whole, whatever it takes, right? And can I say something? Everybody does not want to be whole. Some people are comfortable with their brokenness. Some people are comfortable being them, right? Some people are comfortable blaming everybody, thinking that, oh my God, they're the bread and the butter at the same time, or the mashed potato. But when you have, if everybody is saying the same thing about you, it's not them, it's you, right? And so we have to be able to ask ourselves in our trauma or in our crisis, what made me this way? What made me unaware of my character, my emotions, my feelings, my desires? What's your motive? People in rejection usually have ulterior motives, right? They are attached to people, they trauma bond a lot. They're attached to people for the wrong reason. What made my taste buds? What made me have a desire to drink, to smoke, to be promiscuous, to want to give my body away? What made that happen? And when you go back to those places and you're honest with yourself, you'll become self-aware. You'll understand that I am nice and nasty at the same time, or I'm just a nasty individual, and I'm rowdy and I'm rude and I'm aggressive and I'm the problem. And it takes a big person to say that I'm going to change for my children, I'm going to change for my family, I'm going to change my behavior because I want to be authentic. And when we are able to do that, that is when you are ready to heal, right? And so in order to heal, we also have to understand that we have to take bite-sized pieces, right? I'm not going to just put all my weight on one area and try to walk again on that area. I'm not going to just take everything and try to do everything at one time, because at the same time you have triggers, right? You have certain things that are going to make you snap. If you feel backed up against the wall, or if something looks like something that made you afraid, you are going to go back into fight mode. And we want you to be able to get through and recover, right? Now I want you to understand the seriousness of your healing. I'm gonna give you this story, right? And it's a scripture that I love. It's in 2 Samuel. And David was out in the field, and Solomon, I mean Samuel, not forgetting, Solomon had came to anoint the king. And all of the brothers, all seven other brothers marched through, but David did not come in. David was in the field. So he asked Jesse, he was like, is this all the sons? Because Samuel knew that he heard God say that there is an anointed there's somebody that's supposed to be anointed. And back then, it wasn't just somebody laying hands. The oil had to flow organically. When God said, you lift the horn and the oil will come out the horn. Well, Jesse was like, nah, it's just David. But David, he's just David. How many people said it's just you? It's just Tanya. It's just whoever that's watching this video. It's just your name and you're nobody, right? They thought that David was nobody. But in the midst of that, Samuel said, send for him. We will not sit down until he comes in. I want you to look at your healing process and understand this. Who cannot sit down? Now, when we look at this verse of scripture and we look at the meaning of that word, sit down, that means that they cannot make a turnaround. They won't change. They won't come out. They won't go over. Make a turn around, come out of what they're in until you get to your position. There are people that you are responsible for outside of your children, outside of your marriage. There are people that are waiting to see you come through and get through what you have gone through. But in order for them to get through, you have to come in. And sometimes we stay out. What if David didn't answer when Jesse told him to come inside and he still was out there? They would have remained standing. They would not be able to settle. Well, they would not be able to get what they needed to get because David was out of position. If I didn't move that truck when we got a call and they gave us a call for a difficulty breather, a cardiac arrest or whatever, if my truck stayed parked, I never cut on the lights and sirens and got to the destination, then people would die because I did not move my truck. And if I could not move my truck for mechanical reasons or whatever, then they would dispatch another unit. There are things that God has given your hands to do concerning crisis, and not even so much crisis that has happened, but crisis that is coming in the earth. And many of you are first responders. And I think that the ones that are first responders in the natural and in the spirit realm go through it the worst because of the failure to heal. How is it that I worked almost 13 years as a paramedic, lights and sirens, healing everybody, bringing people back from the dead, but almost every week wanting to commit suicide because of depression, because of not being able to deal with my childhood pain, being in crisis myself. Now, this you got to understand, I'm out there, advanced life support, intubating, running IVs, bringing people back from the dead, right? And wanting to die myself because I'm in crisis. Here, people call me to respond to crisis, but I'm the crisis. I'm in crisis. So I want you to know that your road to healing requires you once again to be a part of your own rescue. And in order for you to do that, it takes courage and it takes strength, right? Because you want to be able to say that I'm honest with myself. If you can't be honest with nobody else, get you a journal. Write your stuff that you need to say to yourself. Write down the things that you said I would never speak about. And that right there is going to begin to shift you into something else. Your body is going to be excited because, we're addressing some things that have been driving him or her crazy. We're addressing some things that got her unable to complete anything. We're addressing some things that got her aggressive and wanting to fight and cuss, or him wanting to get a gun and kill everybody in the house. We're addressing those things, and the body is going to begin to adjust the excess things that you carry, even in the cells, right? The body, the aches and the pains that you had that are related to trauma, you're going to be able to release those things. But we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to have courage to go to those places that triggered us, get what we need and come out, right? And we have to be able to be a participant in the healing process. Somebody can give you the tools, but if you don't use them, or you don't take the prescription, or I don't want to take I took the medicine 3 days and I'm supposed to take it for 3 months, and then I wonder why it's not working, or I still feel sick, or I still feel like I'm gonna die, then we're not gonna ever complete it. Give me 1 second, guys, because my computer is gonna die. That was not good, but okay. I thought I had plugged it up anyway. So so that is where we are with this. And I'm just going to give you bite-sized pieces because a lot of people are reaching out. And it's a lot. It's a lot to heal from traumatic things, no matter what it is. It's a lot. But I think that if we take bite-sized pieces of it, that it's going to work for you. And it's going to work for everybody who goes through it. The first person you need to forgive is yourself. And so, one thing that I want you to do, as another thing, I told you to be able to identify your pain point. You need to identify. You need to write it down: the who, the what, the why, the when, and the where. You have to put a name. You can't be like, they did this to me. It takes courage to call it by its name. So and so, yes, he touched me there. I have people that their earliest memory is having penises in their mouth at 6 years old. Come on, we have to be able to deal with these things head on so that it'll stop dealing with you, right? We also have to be able to go back to the scene of the crime, go in, get what you need to get. Again, look at, you ever been in a car accident and you go to get your stuff out the car and you see the car and you like, that's going to be your moment where you like, I survived this thing. I'm just existing, but I need to live my life because I survived this thing. You survived some things that others did not survive. Also, I want you to be able to um, the last thing I want you to do is to examine your character, your feelings, your motives, and your desires, right? And see, are you being your authentic self? Am I my authentic self? And that's what I'm going to leave you with today, to be your authentic self, right? And I want you to always remember in every episode of the Crisis Corner to be a part of your own rescue. We can't be more concerned about your rescue than you are, right? I need for you to cooperate with me, stand on a rock, wave your hand. When the Hurricane Katrina came, it was the fact that they were able to show, like, oh my God, I'm getting up. In your favorite movie, the character was rescued because they got up, right? And so there's a difference between rescue and recovery in crisis. Rescue means that there is signs of life. If you're still here, no matter what you went through, you're breathing. You may not have all of your abilities, but you're here and you're breathing. That means that it is a sign of life and we can get you back together. A recovery is when they go in and we don't have no signs of life. We're going in to get the bodies out. When 9/11 when the recovery part was, that means that there was no sign of life, and now we're just going to pull these bodies out. And so I want you to take, when you watch these episodes, and I thank you guys for watching. I thank you for the DMs. I thank you for the messages. You could DM me if you have any questions that you don't want to put in the comments, but you want me to answer personally, and I will gladly do that. You can email me at tru@latanyaevette.com. You can email me because it is my life work for you to heal and for you to not be stuck longer than you are. We offer one-on-one group coaching. We have a trauma recovery university. And so it is about your soul, your emotions, and everything to be healthy about you and to bring you out of the legacy of trauma. You don't have to live there and you don't have to die there. And so, again, I thank you guys for tuning in with me. I thank you guys for supporting me over all the things that I have done, all of my work with Unmuted, Unleashed, and all of that. And I want you guys to know that I love you all, right? But I want you to be serious about your healing. So you can go back and watch the replay. Get your notebook, get your pen, take notes, write a letter to your little self. My letter started, dear little Tanya, I know you battled with rejection and I'm battling with it as adult. Let's talk. And just went back and bridge that gap between 54-year-old Tanya and 13-year-old Tanya to bring it together so that we're able now to partner and conquer these things that we went through. Because if it was no little Tanya, grown Tanya wouldn't have no testimony, wouldn't be a recovery coach or anything else, because I would have still been there. And so, listen, guys, we can do this, and we're here to walk you through and make sure that you get through what you have gone through. I love you all, and we'll be back next Wednesday with more tips on crisis and how to get through. Listen, if it's not for you, I'm sure you know somebody that is in crisis, that's going through anything. You can pass it on. You can share, like, and share the video. You can also, one thing that you can also do is just let people know that it is much better to heal little children or to protect little children than to fix broken adults. I love you all. So again, 911, what's your emergency and how can I assist you on today? I love you all and be blessed. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.